Hi everyone, I'm Steven from Database Tycoon, and today I'm going to be giving a demo of MotherDuck, and I'm going to show you 3 ways that you can load data from a text file, in this case a CSV file, into MotherDuck. So this is 3 different options for doing that. So the first option is probably the easiest, and it's just using the web UI. So as you can see on my screen, I already have the web UI open. I want to call out that I'm using a impersonated account here. You might notice that at the top. I just did that because I already have some real data in my production account, so I don't want to show that on this demo, but I made a demo user, and MotherDuck has this nice feature that lets you impersonate the account for a period of time. So you're seeing a clean slate here, essentially. This is what you start with in MotherDuck. Now I would like to start by following the simplest path and just create a table from files. So I pre-prepared this mta.csv file. This is a download of data from the city of New York about the congestion pricing that went into effect in this city in 2025. It's transaction info about who has passed through the sensors, who has paid the toll, things like that. So it's a fairly large data set at 600 megabytes. It's a CSV format file. So I'm just going to click open and see what happens. So you right away kind of get hit with this wizard screen. So it found the file. It's asking basically, what do you want the table name to be and where do you want it to go? So I am going to just leave all the defaults for now, but you could imagine you could create your own database if you needed to. You have a couple of options for loading the file. Just basically the default true ignore errors toggle and the replace table if name is taken. So it's probably just a good practice to have that in general, even though I know it's not in there. So let's give it a shot. Remember, this is about ½ gigabyte, and I have the file saved locally, so presumably it's uploading right now to the MotherDuck server. Looks like we're done, and yeah, loaded pretty quick. 3.5 million rows. Immediately you kind of get this option to query it in a new notebook, so you'll get a notebook object and you'll get kind of this pre-written query. I don't know if this is new SQL syntax or what, but MotherDuck, you're allowed to actually put the from statement above the select, so you kind of get these more linear SQL queries for those of us who, read from top to bottom, like most of us are. Yeah, so that's the first way. So you can basically just load a CSV into the environment, load it into one of your databases or create a new one if you need to, and move on with your day. Now we're going to do a second option here, which is to load a local file using the DuckDB CLI and loading it directly into MotherDuck. So for that, let me drop everything that I have in here already. I'll leave the MTA table for now. All right, now we're going to try the second option that we have for creating a table in MotherDuck. So I'm going to do some CLI work here and show you how easy it is to upload using the DuckDB project. So just for some notes here, I have some stuff in this folder already. Here's what I'd like to point out. This is the folder raw data where that file was downloaded to. So if I do ls raw data, you should see that one MTA file. Everything else in here is the product of me running UV init, which I should have done on the demo instead of before the demo. But basically what this does is we'll initialize a Python project around this so that you automatically get a virtual environment, and I find easy to use for adding packages and things. So the package we need for this project is DuckDB. So imagine I've ran UV init and it creates all of this scaffolding. So everything except for the raw data, basically. So you get, amongst other things, the venv directory, which will give you your virtual environment, and the PyProject toml, which is where you'll add packages. So in this case, I wanted to add DuckDB. And I'm pretty sure it's already in the file. but that's what a successful run should look like. And then the next step is to run UV sync, which will check the list of packages you've added and make sure that they're all installed. So the fact that you're seeing what you're seeing is a good sign, just means everything's already resolved. It's been installed previously. If I was installing this for the first time, it would be giving a lot more output here. But basically, once you have this loaded, you can go ahead and just invoke a DuckDB instance. For anyone who has worked with like Postgres in the terminal, you might recognize this experience where there's sort of a different set of commands to work with. Everything starts with this dot command. So it's not bash, but it's a language that MotherDuck can interpret, or DuckDB, I should say, can interpret. So what we're actually going to do here is we're going to attach. This is a common starting point for many DuckDB projects, because when you think about a session in DuckDB, you kind of have to attach a DuckDB file to your session, and then you're working with it. So what do you do when you're attaching to a remote server, MotherDuck? Well, if you do this, you'll attach to your MotherDuck account. I have authenticated previously to this. So there's a, there's a DuckDB auth command, which if you run it, it opens your browser, it asks you to log in through your browser, and then, you're connected that way. In this case, I'm just attaching with a previously authed connection, and when you do md:nothing, then it'll attach globally, so you'll get access to all of your databases. If you want to specify a specific database, you can put it here, but we're not going to do that in this case. So what we can do now that we've attached, is we can say list databases, show databases, and then we get the list that matches what we have here. There's MyDB, there's SampleDB, and then there's these two which are actually hidden. And we go ahead with loading the file. So you can do this with one command, and you can say create table. So now, this is just SQL at this point. Create table, we're going to make it in MyDB, we're going to call it MTA CLI, so we know it came from the CLI as, and then this is where DuckDB is pretty cool. You can just go select star from, and then point to the CSV file directly, which I have locally. So, it's going to read the file, infer the columns, infer the types, create the actual thing, and of course upload the data, which is, as we said earlier, over half a gigabyte. So you can see here it took about 18 seconds to do all that, just about as long as it took me to describe what was happening. And then if I go in here and refresh, I may not have even really needed to do that, but yeah, you can see MTA CLI's in here, and I didn't run this before, but we could run this now, and you could see everything would show up. So that's the second method for loading data into MotherDuck from a CSV file. I'm going to show you the third way to connect to MotherDuck with a local file and produce a table there. This is the newest way to do it, and one that I'm pretty excited about, which is the MotherDuck MCP. So as of, I guess, December 2025, MotherDuck announced that they have a new MCP, and it is pretty good at understanding schemas, databases, tables, things like that, all the things you would expect a warehouse MCP to be good at, and I want to show you how to use it for a quick example here. So I'm going to show you this process from scratch, actually. So if we go to the page, the documentation, we can see a quick start guide. I'm going to be using Claude code in this example, but you can see that they've got support for all of these, even others. You could actually just go in and add it to your, MCP server of choice and just add this config there. So, but let's see Claude code. So it's a bash command you run outside of the Claude environment. So you'd run this before you open Claude up, but you'd say MCP add MotherDuck and then transport to this URL. So I'm going to switch back and just copy this in. Great. So the way Claude handles this is there's a local Claude JSON file in my global user directory where they manage this. So this will make it public, not public, but it'll make it global to all of my Claude sessions. So let's open up Claude. And let's just check in here. Yep, we see MotherDuck. We also see Fabby, which is another MCP that I've been experimenting with a bit, but MotherDuck's definitely connected. So let's see if I can just one-shot this and try to get it all to load. And never done this before, but I'm going to be trying to do a voice recording into Claude while I'm recording a call. So let's see how that goes. Claude, please use the MotherDuck MCP to create a new table under MyDB, and it should be called MTA Claude. And you can find it in a local folder called rawdata/mta.csv. That's it. So let's see how it does. I'm thinking it's probably going to use my user and not the assumed user role I showed earlier, so it might upload it to the wrong spot. I don't know yet if you can set a specific user token within a Claude session for the MCP, but let's see what it does. Let's see what it says. Oh, we seem to have some kind of a string error. It's reading the file. As I mentioned, this is a file that shows vehicles that have passed into the low congestion zone, or I should say congestion relief zone, CRZ. Alright, so we've now returned a attempt of tool use here. So within the, so it interpreted this literally. I don't think this is going to be an exact match. And it's actually suggesting to create the schema MTA that doesn't exist yet. So yeah, sure, let's do that. You can see that it's a query MCP command. Alright, it's running to some expected errors because the MyDB database doesn't exist. So instead of trying to create it, it's actually saying, let's list the databases. Let's see if it will be smart enough to know. Yep, it figured it out. Oh, okay, so here's the syntax, I guess. It passes in a database name, it passes in a SQL command to this query. So try it. Oh, alright, so permission errors. It's a good test. Let's see how it handles it. That's funny. So take a look at this. It's actually doing exactly what we just did through the CLI. It's running that duckdb command. I mean, not quite exactly what we did, but same effect. So yeah, I mean, this would accomplish the goal, so let's do it. So it's going to create a new schema in this process. It's going to create the table in this process. If I wanted to override any of those settings, obviously I would have, but for now I'm just curious to see what it can do sort of unprompted. Now it's going to attempt to query the table that it claims it has created. And it can't. Oh, interesting. Table doesn't exist. Okay, the output it got from that query was too wide, so now it's going to try to get a shorter list. Clearly that table is there. Now we're looking for a count, row count from that table. Alright, it did it, so why couldn't we run that query earlier? Okay, well, in any case, it looks like it has gotten the job done. It uploaded the table, it tells me a little bit about what's in there, and then take a look at this note that says, I used the DuckDB CLI directly because the MotherDuck's MCP connection is read-only. Read-only. So that's good to know. The database name is MyDB, not MyDB, right? That was my mistake. But not bad considering it took me less than a minute to say that prompt out loud. So just to wrap up, I guess I want to call out that this is a brand new product, this MCP, and it's clearly not ready for any kind of prime time situation, but it was quite smart navigating the challenges that came up with the CSV upload, and I didn't really bother to check the permissions or anything in advance, so considering I gave it almost no context other than the file path, basically, I think it did a decent job. Anyway, that ended up being the longest of the three methods, but I hope it gave you some insight into what is available to you with this new MotherDuck MCP, and now you have 3 options for creating tables from files in MotherDuck. So thanks everybody, and tune in for the next one.